And we're just trying to have conversations with cool coaches like yourself and programs like yours across the board from JUCO, NAI, Division III, Division II, mid-major schools. We all know that the Power Four schools get a lot of the shine and
Yeah.
get the attention and notoriety, but there's a lot of awesome interest stories out there and people that are doing great things at all levels. And we're just trying to create conversations that we wish we would have known about or heard about when we were in high school going through the recruiting process because a lot of guidance counselors, coaches leave some things out in terms of financial things, cool locations, majors, all these different things. And so we're just trying to get the word out, spread the word, and let high school athletes know that if you're committed to being a student athlete at the next level, even though you might not have hit your stride or hit your peak in high school or been a blue chip recruit. If you're willing to work hard and put in the work and have a good character, there's a place out there for you, and we're trying to help people find those places.
I love that. I love that, man. There's always a place for everybody, in my opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's one of the cool things with doing this is we've found out about a lot of great schools that we just never even knew existed just by researching and doing things. And yeah, coaches are doing great things, programs are doing great things, and yeah, like we didn't know until we moved to Colorado that you could get a degree in ski mountain or
Yeah.
ski, grooming and those sorts of things. Or like some
Yeah.
schools have welding certification programs and construction management programs and degrees. So, yeah, we just want to get the word out. So we're excited to chat with you tonight and get a little bit more information about Ursinus and what the program's like, what the school has to offer, and add another name to our a board of people who we can root for and cheer for in the coming years.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back and we're going belly to belly again tonight. We wanted to thank Coach Jimmy Rollins from Clearview High School last night in New Jersey from joining us. And we do have another Jersey guy of sorts with us. So he's originally from PA and he's back in PA now, but we're going to claim him as a Jersey guy. We're back to talk championship winning wrestling. Coach who is shaping the future of young men and women at Ursinus College. But before we get started, please make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that button. Follow us on Instagram and all podcast platforms. Drop us a comment. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love your feedback. Get in on it. Join the conversation. If you're getting any value out of anything we're doing over here, please support the show. Buy us a coffee. Click on that link. Every sip, every bean fuels the next episode. And again, as always, while we're doing this is a Grass Movements over here at Airey Bros Radio, and we're all about spotlighting the programs and coaches we wish we knew about during our own recruiting process, wrestlers, runners, and student athletes alike. This one is for you. And of course, if you got any training needs, whether it's an ultra marathon, or a couch to 5K, we've got you covered. Check out Black Sheep Endurance for elite running and coaching and nutrition coaching. Now on to tonight's guest, Coach Joe Jamison. He is the director of wrestling at Ursinus College. Coach Jamison brings elite level coaching experience and winning mentality to Ursinus Wrestling. His resume speaks for itself. As I said, we're claiming him as a Jersey guy. He's a former Princeton University assistant coach, where he helped develop NCAA qualifiers and All-Americans. He was also the head of the Princeton Wrestling Club and the Olympic Training Center there. He's leading Ursinus Wrestling into a new era of success in the Centennial Conference. In this episode, we're going to cover his journey at Princeton and his way and how he got to Ursinus, stepping into a legendary coaching role, how Ursinus Wrestling is making moves in the Centennial Conference, what high school wrestlers need to know when looking at college programs, the biggest challenges and opportunities in today's wrestling landscape. As again, make sure you like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Let's get into it. Without further ado, Coach Jamison, it is an honor and a pleasure to have us joining us tonight on Airey Bros Radio. Thank you for your time. We do greatly appreciate it. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, gentlemen. Happy to be here.
We are excited to chat with you. And before we get too deep into the conversation, if you have anything you would like to plug or promote anywhere we can send recruits or parents that might have questions about the program, if you have any camps or clinics or anything coming up, spring wrestling, summer wrestling is rapidly approaching. The floor is yours.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Best way to find information about us is our socials. On Twitter, especially we're pretty active. For the men, it's Ursinus W. For the women, it's Ursinus Women's Wrestling. Same on Instagram. The men is Ursinus College Wrestling. I think there's a couple underscores in there somewhere, but it's pretty easy to find. And you can find me on both at Joseph M. Jamison.
Awesome. We appreciate that. We'll put all that information in the show notes for you as well. And Coach, I was jokingly saying we're claiming you as a Jersey guy, but probably the most important question we're going to ask you, and you never know, as being a PA guy, you did spend some time with Coach Ayers. Is it pork roll or Taylor ham for you?
It's pork roll for
All
sure.
right, let's go.
It is,
You
and
didn't?
it's funny enough. I never even heard the word Taylor ham until I was about 5 years into my coaching career at Princeton. And
Okay.
I was like, you called it what? Like I'd never heard that in my life.
Interesting. So where in PA, where exactly geographically from in Pennsylvania? You're near Philly, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in Philly and moved out right before high school up into Bucks County.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so now I live in Montgomery County now.
Okay. And that's all
Yeah.
pork roll country there.
All pork roll country. That's right.
Awesome. Well, now that we got that
Yeah.
out of the way, we can get into it.
But for the record, Scrapple's better anyway. But so it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a cup of coffee at Pitt Johnstown, and my roommate there, he swore by Scrapple. A little too salty for my taste.
Yeah.
But I gave it a go for sure. He was I believe he was from York, Pennsylvania, so he
Okay. Yeah.
swore by it. But Coach, one thing we like to do here to kind of kick it off, how'd you get into the sport of wrestling, and how did that lead into coaching for you?
Yeah. So where I grew up in Philadelphia, we didn't like I didn't even know what wrestling was. Like it wasn't even a thing. There were some high school programs around, but as a kid growing up, it just didn't exist where I grew up. It wasn't until we moved out in the Bucks County when I was in middle school. I was in seventh grade, and I wasn't a great basketball player, right? It wasn't very big. I was probably weighed about 75 pounds, right? I was a little guy, and I did play basketball growing up, but I was the guy. I didn't score very much, but if there was a loose ball on the floor, I was your guy, right? I was the one who was diving across the floor trying to get it. Um, and so when we moved out, it was one of those things where I moved into the Council Rock School District, and if you know anything about Southeast PA wrestling, and now it's
Hmm.
splits high schools now, but Council Rock North and South are legit, right? And so I met a couple of guys I became friendly with, and they were like, "Hey, everybody does this. You should try it." And when they mean everybody does it, I mean there was well over 100 kids in this middle school program. I mean, like everybody did it, and it was just something that I took to immediately. My size didn't matter. How much I weighed didn't matter. I wasn't getting pushed around on the soccer field or like the basketball floor because of my size. And your heart and your effort took you a long way, right? So early on, I took my lumps, right? Don't get me wrong. I took some beatings when I first got started because I was 12. Most of these kids were wrestling since they were like 5 and 6 years old, right? But the more I stuck with it, the more I was able to learn, and I was able to close the gap on a lot of these guys. And it was just something I felt that whole process I just fell in love with immediately.
So, wanna go ahead, Rich.
Coach, what was your time at Council Rock?
Grades 7 through 9.
Sorry, what years?
Oh, I'm sorry. So that would have been 92 through 95. So I was in the middle. So back then it was one high school, and
Yeah.
the middle schools then were 7 to 9.
Okay.
And then after my ninth grade year, I transferred to Archbishop Wood High School. I was a Catholic school kid at heart, man. Like grew up in the city, and it was just going to public school was just a little. Uh, it was a tough transition for me, and so my parents decided to send me back to Catholic school and to Archbishop Wood. It was just a better fit for me all around.
While you were at Council Rock, does the name Bill Preston ring a bell at all?
It does not. No.
No. Okay. Because
Yeah.
they had really good cross country and track and field
Okay.
programs there. He was the guy that was the coach there, and then eventually when he retired from Council Rock, then he took the job at Stockton College and was
Oh
the
wow. Okay. Yeah.
coach there for a while. So
Nice.
when you said Council Rock, that name
Yeah.
just jumped out at me. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, Coach, I want to get more into your wrestling story and how that
Mhm.
led into coaching, but you made mention that everyone wrestles in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and I never thought I'd get to tell this story, but now is my opportunity. When I was coaching at Middlesex County College, we went up to State College, PA, for the Penn State Open.
Mhm.
And at night, me and some of the other coaches, we were like waiting on line to get into a bar, and we were all standing there with our cauliflower or whatever. And there was like a drunk guy being a drunk guy, and he came up to us and he was like, "Yo, a bunch of wrestlers, huh? You think you're tough?" And he like hugged a dude, and we thought they were buddies, and then he Jap wizarded him like
Yeah.
on his head, and then someone came out of like nowhere and was like, "What are you doing? That's my brother!" And the dude just like walked off. And my coach, who I was coaching with at the time, he was like, "Only in PA,
Yeah.
only in PA." So where did you wrestle in college?
So I went to King's College up in Wilkes-Barre. I wrestled for Ned McGinley, who was there forever. He actually started the program when that school opened, and he was there for over 50 years. He just, I think about 10 years ago, he retired. They've had a handful of coaches since, but yeah, great experience. And we can get into the weeds a little bit later, but actually, I wanted to go to Ursinus. Loved it there when I went on my visit there. It just didn't work out. All the things my parents were telling me I should be doing when I came home after practice with regards to my studies, I wasn't doing, right? And so that came to bite me a little bit in the end there where I got waitlisted and, I never got off that wait list. And so about when it got time to be like June and I still didn't, I was still waiting. Like I had to kind of make a decision. And so for me, Kings was the next best thing, right? I had a great experience there. I really loved it. I loved wrestling for Ned. He was such a great guy. He was one of those coaches where, and it's really formative for how I became as a coach, that he really cared about your overall development, not just your development as a wrestler. And I saw that there when I unfortunately battled a lot of injuries when I was in college. And I ended up missing my senior year. And so he was able to kind of take me under his wing, and I was named captain of the team, but obviously I wasn't competing. And so he kind of put me in like a student coaching type of role where I was able to, still come to practice, and I ran a lot of the weightlifting because he was a full-time teacher. So like I would run all the weight lifts for a lot of the guys, do it during the day, and be able to be in the corner in matches and do all those things. And I was really grateful to be in that position because it kind of gave me uh, a mission really of what I should be doing.
Was that something previous to that, you know, injury and then coach offering you that position? Had coaching a teach? I know you're an education major.
Yeah.
Was because I know when I went into education, it was I want to do this because I want to coach. Was that
Yeah.
something for you too, or was it like what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Teaching definitely first.
Yeah.
Like I knew from pretty early since I was like 15 years old, like a sophomore in high school, I wanted to be a teacher. Like I knew that immediately. I had a really good experience. I used to go near my high school. There was a foster care place, so I used to go volunteer there and do homework with a lot of the kids that were there. And so that was like just a great experience for me. And so from that point, I knew I wanted to work with elementary school kids. And I just figured, I can coach too while I'm there. And I also knew like it was kind of a weird caveat where a lot of times elementary school teachers can't coach at the high school level because of times.
Hmm.
But after my experience working with Ned my senior year, it was like, this might there might be something to this for me, like I really enjoyed um working with I was a college kid myself, but like that getting lost in the weeds there, I really enjoyed that. So I was always looking for a way to kind of blend the two as opposed to just teaching elementary school and coaching at like a middle school or high school. While I did that for a little bit and I really enjoyed it, it was always the ultimate goal. Like I always wanted to teach and coach at the college level. Um, I'm not teaching at the college level, obviously, because I'm, at the time, most of like, especially at D3, they were part-time gigs, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was always something. After that experience, I was like, okay, like this is something I want to consider as a career.
And from there, after you graduated, did you go right to Lawrenceville?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I got a job in Lawrence. And I was coaching middle school there. And I coached middle school there for a couple of years. A good buddy of mine hopped on board with me, and we had the time of our lives. Like we were working with these middle school kids, and it was great, and I was a new teacher too. So it was kind of nice to be within the same school district, be able to teach during the day. And the Lawrence setup was a little bit different, where the elementary kids actually went to school and finished first. So I was done school by, I think it was like 2:40, and then the high school, middle school didn't get out until like 3:15. So I was able to pack up my stuff and head over to the middle school, and then, run the practice. So for me, it was a perfect setup. Um, and then from there, I did that for a couple of years, and I wanted to get more involved in like the local area. And the Princeton head coach at the time, Mike New, he ran a club at Lawrenceville Prep, which is right across the school from where I taught. And I ended up just running into him at, he was promoting their youth camp at a local tournament. It was a middle school tournament, and I was there coaching, and I introduced myself to him and had a conversation. He told me about his club. He's like, "Why don't you come by?" And so, being a young and single guy is kind of easy, right? To just like, all right, yeah, I'll just go over and and help him out in his club. And I did that for a couple of weeks, and got into a conversation. They're looking for a volunteer assistant to work with their lightweights, and lo and behold, that's how I got started.
Shout out to Coach New. He was one of my coaches, Team New Jersey. He was
Oh,
the
get out, man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Mike's the man. I still talk to him every now and again. He's such a great dude, and he's down in North Carolina now with his family, and his son's wrestling at Davidson right now. I remember, when they when Mike left and moved on, it was like Savoy was a baby, man. He's like a big ass man. Like, he's huge.
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah.
Rich and I are always looking up at kids we used to hold.
Yeah.
Coach, your experience that got you into coaching, you mentioned you were hurt your senior
Yeah.
year, and then your coach kind of said, "Hey, come help me out." Have you had that opportunity as a coach to kind of help a kid that way, or just because of that experience, talk to kids, "Hey, you might not have achieved your goals here, but
Yeah.
there might be life after this for you."
Oh, absolutely. And especially, and like, it's wrestling's a brutal sport, right? And people are going to get hurt, they're going to get injured. And I always, because of my experience, I'm always pretty keen to like just keep an eye on those guys and girls, right? It's like when they get injured, sometimes they don't come around because they don't like to sit in practice, because it sucks, right? It does, and so I try to keep them involved as much as possible, whether it be like, "Hey, why don't you come on the road with us and do some filming? Why don't you come to practice and help me out with this?" Or like, keep time, or did anything that'll just keep them involved, because it is, a lot of time, 99% of the time it's out of their control, right? And it's just always unfortunate, and for kids, it's heartbreaking. It's everything to them, when they realize that something happened, they're not going to be able to achieve their goals or even have a chance to in that matter. So I'm always pretty sensitive to that, right? And so I always just try and keep kids as involved as possible who aren't on the mat with us, unfortunately.
I love to hear that. There needs to be more of that in the
Yeah.
sport. Coming the way we were raised, it was like you got to be a state champ or national champ, or no one wants you to coach or on the
Yeah,
staff, and that is not true. And there's a spot for everyone in the sport. I know
absolutely.
there's a lot of elitist mentality, but I think, hey, if you want to be here, we'll find a spot for you. We'll figure something out for you.
Yeah, and half the time that's all it takes is somebody willing to, like, "Hey, I really want to do this. I want to be involved where I'm at." And a lot of times it's just they just don't know how, right? And so, and you can just increase their workload a little bit by a little bit, and if they're game, there's always something to give, and there's always a benefit to it.
So you spent some time at Princeton.
Mhm.
At what point did you start looking for other positions, and when did your sinus open up?
Yeah, I really didn't look for a long time. I was pretty happy being at Princeton. The place is awesome, man. And I was really fortunate, because I was only there for a year when Coach Ayers came in, right? And so, most of the time when a new head coach comes in, they kind of clean house, right? But at the time, Princeton didn't have any full-time assistant, like full-time, like Coach New wasn't even full-time, right? And so when Chris came in, he was their first full-time head coach in a while. Um, their endowment started to kick in, and so they're able to have more resources. And he wanted to bring in some of his people and his staff, and there was only so many people he can hire full time. And I always made the joke, he saw me as free labor, right? It was like, like, the term in the college, and it doesn't exist anymore, but back then you were a volunteer assistant. You could have 3 full-time staff and a volunteer assistant. And then the club always took care of the volunteer assistant, right? Like you would have a club, they make a little money, run clinic sessions and that. And we always made the joke that Chris saw me as free labor, right? He can count on me to do a lot of those things just because I loved it. I mean, I got paid through the club. It wasn't a true volunteer, right? But I was like extremely fortunate and blessed that Chris kept me on staff, right? I think he needed someone that there was going to be a transition period, right? And that really knew the guys that were going to stick it out. And I also put a lot of work in. Like I was just a young kid who just really wanted to learn as much as possible. And I really saw this as an opportunity. Like, this guy knows what he's doing, right? And he has a vision for this program. And when he took it over, we were bad. Like we were really bad. And he had a vision and he was going to stick to it. Right. And so I saw it as an opportunity for me to grow as a coach. And so if he was willing to keep me, I was going to stay there as long as I possibly could. And I feel blessed that I got to go through that process, even just play a small part in it to really see what it was like to start from the bottom up, right? And really build a foundation up and then go, right? Because you see it all the time where people will try to make a big splash immediately, right? And they'll be the next big thing. And then a lot of times there's just a drop off, right? Where Chris just did a phenomenal job of just taking his time, a couple years to build the foundation of everything that had to go in being a successful program. And then the wheels started turning and we started to go. And then it was just a trajectory straight up from there. Patience is key, right? There's going to be a lot of ups and downs. But I was really fortunate to be a part of that process. To the second part of that question, so after a certain period of time, the program got to a point where we were like knocking on the door for All Americans, right? And we had a couple upper weights that were just ridiculously tough. Brett Harner being our first, he was the first All American under Ayers. He was an 84 pounder at the time, and then he went up to 97, and I believe he placed at 97 actually, and it was in New York. And the season before that, we were at the point where it was like, we need a big coach. Like we need somebody to get this guy over the hump. And so, and I think it was, I honestly believe like it was a tough conversation for Chris because I was with him at this point now for a decade. Right. And we went through, and at that point there was some assistants that came and went. And I was the one that was there the whole time. Right. And there was actually one summer, it was kind of funny where he was on the road recruiting and I was the only other assistant. Right. So I was in the office doing stuff and he was gone, on the road and recruiting and doing these things. We took tons of Fargo trips together and like so we were like, always together doing stuff throughout the whole time, but we needed a full-time heavyweight coach, right? And he built up the endowment to a point where we can now have 4 full-time staff members, right? And I was still teaching full-time and coming to Princeton every day, either before my school day for one-on-ones or coming to practice afterwards. And it just got to the point where it was time, right? But I was fortunate enough where I was working with the club for a certain period of time, and it's like, hey, I want to get an RTC started, and I think you're the guy to get this done, right? So I just want to move you into this other role because we need somebody up top that's going to help these guys get them to where they need to be. And and I trust me, I got it. I was like, Chris, whatever has to happen for the program, like let's do it. And so then I spent a few years doing that. And it was around that time where I loved what I was doing with the RTC and the club and things like that. But when you're not in practice every day, you're not traveling for competitions, like you miss that. Right. And so that's around the time where I started to like, okay, maybe there's some other things here that can really happen. I do remember having a conversation with my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time, just about the profession and everything. And, and I said, there's a school, out in Collegeville, about an hour from here, Ursinus College. And this time Bill was coaching here now for like 30 years. And I was like, that guy's got to retire eventually. Like, and it's a place that I always fell in love with. I wanted to go there. My high school wrestling partner went there. My cousin went there. Like, it was just an awesome place. And I said, sooner or later, like I didn't want to like really move or go far, right? So, sooner or later that job's got to pop up, right? And then unfortunately, as everybody knows, like Bill, tragically and suddenly passed away, right? And then they had a year of just like an interim head coach because it happened right before the season started. So they had an interim head coach and everyone kind of piecemealed and got things together. But they decided in the spring to open the job up full time. And I remember seeing the posting and I was, in the house and reading it and looking at it. And I got up to go in the other room to grab something. And I came back and my wife was like sitting down, like reading it. And I was like, oh no, like this is like, I wasn't ready for this conversation. And she just turns around and looks at me and says, you're going to apply for this, right? And I was like, all right, yeah, I am. I'm going to apply for it. And so here we are.
Is your wife a Jersey girl?
She's not
No.
also
Okay.
PA. Yeah. She went to Pennsbury High School in PA.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't hard to convince her to go back to Pennsylvania, was it?
No, but think we never lived in New Jersey. We stayed in PA
Oh,
the
you
whole
were
time.
saying PA the whole time. Oh,
Yeah, we
okay.
stayed. Yeah,
Easy.
yeah. So we lived in Bucks County the whole time. So it was a
Okay.
nice, easy little hop across the river.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, another through line for you. Jimmy mentioned that Coach New was his coach
Mhm.
on Team New Jersey. I personally was on Team New Jersey with Coach Ayers in 1993.
Oh, get
So,
out.
yeah.
Nice.
So, and I can remember when he first took over the program at Princeton, I was coaching at Monmouth University as a
Mhm.
track coach, cross country coach, and we were at Jadwin Gym for an indoor track meet. And we kind of both walked in the gym at the same time together. And I was like, "You Chris Ayers?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Hey." So I can remember him getting started at, the stories of, the
Mhm.
first couple of years of dual meets where there was, crickets in the stands and not too many
Yeah.
fans. And he did an amazing thing, and Joe's doing great things there too. And they just had their first Ivy League championships,
Yep.
which was cool. I got to watch that, a lot of wrestling this weekend. But back to getting the new position. I mean, you put in for it. Was that a nerve-wracking experience? Was there other candidates? When they offered you the position, was there even a thought of, do I take this or not, or was it like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm in?
Yeah, I mean there was other candidates and there was a process to it, of course, right? And I was lucky enough where I had somebody who was kind of fighting for me a little bit, right? Shout out to Matt Valenti. His wife Kim is the gymnastics coach at Ursinus.
Okay.
Yeah, who I get to work with every day. She's awesome. And so Matt at the time was an AD at Penn
Hmm.
and they gave Matt a call, be like, hey, we have this list of candidates and just if you have any opinions or if you know of anyone that we should be reaching out to, please let me know. And in that conversation, my name came up and they're like, he was like, call him call him, and so that was kind of nice to have him on my side. And now he's back coaching at Penn. It pains me to
Hmm.
kind of watch the Princeton Penn duel every year. Like, oh man, what do I do? It makes it kind of tough, but yeah. So and I went through the interview process, but it still, even though it's something I always want to be doing, it wasn't like an easy decision. Like it's a big career change. Like I was teaching at this point now for 18 years and it was a challenge and it was difficult, but at the end of the day, it's like you have to bet on yourself, right? And you have to be like, there's something I've always wanted to do, and I got to take the leap because if I don't, I'm going to regret it. I'm always going to wonder what if, and luckily I have a ton of support here at home and with my wife and my parents, and it was and they made it easy on me. So it's actually to the time, what our biggest concern was childcare, right? Because I worked during the day, obviously, and my wife worked at the time. She worked a 4:30 to 2 p.m. shift, right? She works for Amtrak. And so we would have like the trade-off. I would go to work and she'd have the kids during the day, and my kids were really little. And she'd have them during the day, and then they would go to my parents or my in-laws, and I'd pick them up, and then I was by myself at night with the kids. And but like if I'm coaching, we're at practice, it's like I'm not getting home till after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and I got to travel a lot and this and that. And so she actually had a colleague at work that she was pretty tight with who during the season switched shifts with her. She's like, nope, you take the day shift, I'll take the night shift. And she did that for 7 months just so I could take this job. Right. And so I was just so blessed and fortunate to have all these. Oh, hey, buddy. How you doing? No, he's back there. And so I'm just okay. I was just so blessed and fortunate to have all these people in my corner. And yeah, so that really makes it easy.
Well, give another shout out to Coach Valente. He's been a guest on Airey Bros as
Okay.
well.
Nice.
We often talk about the CE role of a head coach or a director, but going through that interview process, even being the CEO with that CEO mindset, like you probably went in and presented some sort of a business plan of
Yeah.
how I'm going to run this program and how, what your model for the future was. What did that look like? And has it been shaping and going in the direction that you
Yeah.
hoped?
Yeah, so they and into that process, like they want to see practice plans and do all those things, but I was like, I went in there with like a 10-year plan. Like here's where we are and here's where I think that we can go. Right. And I spent a lot of time just talking about like, without getting too deep into like the wrestling stuff. I'm very fortunate that our AD at the time, who then went on to become a vice president of the college, she loved wrestling, right? So she understood the sport a lot. But I really spent a lot of time talking about culture, spent a lot of time talking about fundraising, how we can really grow and support the program. And here are some things that we did at Princeton, and here are some things I want to emulate. And then we talked a lot about women's wrestling and how I think we'd be a perfect fit to add a women's wrestling program. And that really like intrigued them a lot as well. And so I spent a lot of more time talking about those overarching ideas of things that I think that we can get going, but then also being able to back them up and be like, hey, yeah, like I have these overarching ideas, but here are some things that I know that we can get done. And here are the steps I would like to use to make it happen. And I tell people all the time, if you want to coach college wrestling, don't be a head coach. You got 99% of your day is not in the room, but I'll be in there. Obviously, I'm in the room every day and running practice a lot of the times, and my assistants will take over and run the practice a lot of times, and I'll get to wrestle with the guys and the girls. But being a head coach or a director now, that I guess you can call it, it allows me to do the things that I also love doing that I was doing while I was teaching. Is just sitting down with these kids and just, when they come in the office, yeah, sometimes they'll come in to watch film or talk wrestling, but usually it's about something else, right? It's something personal or they need help with something or they're looking for guidance. And for me, that's the best part of the job.
So, Coach, I know you mentioned that there was a coach that was there for 38 years and he
Yeah.
had passed, and there was an
Mhm.
interim coach. What did the program look like when you took it over, and where is it now compared to those goals that you presented?
Yeah. So when I came in, the roster was sitting around 25. We had 5 weights where we had one guy, which was not great, So we lacked a little bit of depth. Team was young. We had some young guys. The incoming class was pretty good. So I was pretty helpful, encouraged by that. But we had no returning regional place winners. So for anybody out there that doesn't understand how the D3 system works, right? To get to nationals. At the time it was broken up into how many regions was at the time? 6 regions. Top 3 had to go to nationals. So it was only an 18-man bracket, right? And it's like there's 125, 26 schools in D3. Now we have a 21-man bracket. But still, it's so hard to get to nationals, right? But if you were top 8 in your region, like you were a place winner in the regional tournament. So we had no returning regional place winners on the team, right? So we had no one that placed top. We had 2 the previous year, 1 graduated and 1 transferred. He was actually in the blood round at nationals. And I remember saying on my interview, I was excited to work with him. And they're like, well, we just found that I was like, all right, okay, let's get going. And so, yeah. And so I knew, that we're gonna have some work to do. Right. But it was also kind of nice where it was a clean slate. Right. Where I was like, okay, I've been here before. Right. And, it's just going to take some work. And so And also, to be honest, our team GPA was also not great. We were sitting around, I think that first semester around like a 2.59, right? And it's, which is
And they
fine.
didn't let you in?
Yeah, yeah, it's like it's fine, like they're passing, like it's okay, but it had to be better. And I think we had to make that culture shift where, I came from a place where academics matter, right? And the correlation between doing well outside of the wrestling room, doing everything right outside the wrestling room carries over into the room. I think at a lot of places that's lost, right? And like you need to bring in the people who care about every facet of their life. And that's what's going to elevate everybody in the room. Right. And so there started to be a turnaround. It took a little bit of time, right? But there started to be a turnaround of where guys all of a sudden they were, just kind of lollygagging in the classroom and just getting 2.5s because they're smart. And all of a sudden they're getting over a 3.0 the next semester. And now they're getting a 3.2 and then they're making it on the dean's list. And so it just took a little bit of time. And now like my first year, we had one scholar All-American, right? So that's, it's something we had to do better. This year we'll have 6, which is great. Our team GPA that this last semester was 3.1, I think. Right. So that's pretty good. Like it's a far cry from where we were. It could be better, right? I got some guys who absolutely crush it. I got some guys that they need to have some conversations with their coaches and teammates to get them back on track. But to that point, like in the team I inherited, they finished second to last in the conference the year before I got there, right? And then we just had this steady climb where we took fourth, we had the COVID year, we took third, then we won back-to-back titles, and this year we just took second. A tight one. We lost. Merchant Marine had an unbelievable tournament. They wrestled out of their minds. And so we lost by 1.5 points. We wrestled well enough to win it. And it's just, they just had a day, man. They crushed it. So hats off to them. We knew it was going to be like a razor thin margin. And they just got it done. Right. But but with that being said, we had 8 guys at the tournament score points out of our 10, and 7 of them are coming back. So yeah. And we're going to get back. One of our captains, Sean Cowan, who took 4th in our region last year. He was Centennial Conference champ. He was Centennial Conference Rookie of the Year. He tore his ACL over the summer. And so he opted to get surgery. So he wasn't with us this past year. So not only are all of our guys coming back, we're plugging him back into the lineup. Right. So we're super excited for the next couple of years, really, because we were very sophomore heavy this year.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on the growth and success. We know how hard that is, so that is awesome that steady climb every year and that second place this year. I know you wanted to win it, but
Yeah.
that's pretty good based on where you were, not having any qualifiers or any placers in the conference. So that is
Yeah, and
awesome.
we've and we've had a string of sending guys to nationals every year. We had an All-American last year. So we're excited to see what's next.
So you said the guys weren't students, right? And
Mhm.
you now you have to recruit personalities. So what is that sniff test?
Yeah. I have a pretty good feel for people. Like just for whatever reason, it's just something I've innately just been able to do, right? And so when I have a conversation with a kid, I can usually tell pretty quickly um what they're all about, right? And for me, wrestling is important. See you, buddy. For me, like wrestling's important, right? Don't get me wrong. It puts food on my table. Like it is incredibly important to me. I love to win just as much as anybody, but this is just part of their experience, right? It's just part of their education, right? And um, we want to be doing all the things that we've been taught in the room, but it's always like I tell these guys every day, everybody across the country shows up at 4:30 and works super hard. Like that's the minimum. Like everybody does that. Everyone's an All-American at 5 o'clock, I tell them. Like it's super easy, right?
Mhm.
It's doing all the things outside the room that makes you who you are and puts kids on podiums. Year after year, it's those kids that get on the podiums. You have conversations with them. They're doing everything right outside the room. They're taking care of their schoolwork. They're meeting in their own time with all their teachers. They're making the right decisions socially. You know, they're not staying up all night and playing video games. Like they're doing the right things, right? And so that's for me, that's what it's all about. And they care about each other. They care about other people. Like I've never seen, I've been around a long time. I've never seen the love that these guys have for each other anywhere else. It's incredible. It's incredible. Like just the love and the trust they have in each other, in the coaching staff. They're very open with each other and with us. It's been like a real joy, you know, and a lot of it's just bringing in the right people that are like-minded and that we hit it off with. And obviously we would like for them to be very good at wrestling, you know, like that's also a big part of it, right? But there's been times where we'll be talking to a kid and I'm like, you know what? Like this kid's not bad. You know, he might be able to break the lineup one day, or maybe if he develops, we might be able to get something out of him. But man, if he isn't a damn good kid, and he's going to help us in ways in the room and outside the room and in the locker room that these other guys can't, right? And so we'll look for those guys, you know, and so that's incredibly important. So usually like when we recruit, like we usually like to bring in anywhere from like 8 to 10. Sometimes we bring in 12 because it's like, you know what, these 3 or 4 guys that we're going to bring in, I don't know what's going to happen with them on the mat. They might develop, but you know, they're going to do some damn good things for this program, even if they're not on the mat for us every day.
Coach, talk about the love that the guys have for one another. You know, you do have a very diverse roster where both men's and women's, where you have people from California, Hawaii,
Yeah.
Minnesota, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of Jersey and a lot of PA guys. Does that cross border rivalry? Does that love go out the window sometimes when it comes to Jersey and PA wrestling?
I mean, they're always ragging on each other constantly. I mean, they know where I stand for sure. We're always ragging on each other. And actually, so we always do like an inter squad match every year.
Hmm.
You know, we actually do it out like outside in October on the quad.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. We've had nice weather the past few years, guys and girls matches. So it's been great. Bring in refs. But the one year the guys were joking that they wanted to make it a PA versus Jersey duel. You know, and there was one weight where they couldn't figure it out, and they said, "We're trading him to Team PA." I'm like, dude, you sure? And then and because they thought he wasn't going to be the guy who was going to win, like, we're trading him. I said, bring him over, and he won.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I was like, well, yeah, now you put him in PA. Yeah, but I'd say about for the most part, like for the men's team, it's a little different, right? Because we are a D3 program, we're small and a regional school. Like we do have some kids across the country. We have a kid from California, a kid from Hawaii, a kid from Texas on the
Texas, yeah.
men's team, yeah. But they usually have a tie to the area.
Okay.
Right. So Stone, who's from Hawaii, his head coach, his coach in high school went to Ursinus, and
Oh,
Stone's
cool.
dad is a PA guy. Right. So there's that. Nick Broxson, he's from San Diego area. Um, his parents are from Delaware County. Like, and he was in the Navy and they got stationed out in San Diego. Right. And so kid from Texas, same thing. His family's from Reading, right? And so like there's always something that just keeps them like drawn to the area. And so we're mostly PA and Jersey. We'll have a sprinkling of like New York and Maryland guys and Delaware guys every once in a while, but for the most part. And two, to be honest, like we don't need to recruit nationally. Like
Sure.
we don't need to. I mean, like we're in like PA and Jersey are number one, number two in my book,
Hmm.
right? Like when it comes to high school wrestling. So it's like now a lot of times it's convincing these kids that have D1 brain that you don't have to go Division 1 to have a great career. You know, and a lot of times we'll have conversations with kids that are like, it's D1 or bust, right? And you got to kind of tell them and like, listen, I think you're great and I think you're really good at wrestling. You go there, your opportunities are going to be pretty slim, right? And it's not that I don't believe in you, and it's not that I don't think that you can do it. I just know you can come here and get the career that you want and really make a splash and wrestle for a title one day, right? As opposed to fighting and clawing for just a spot on the roster, you know. On the women's side, it's kind of nice where we're in a spot where we can recruit nationally. right? Because it's all one division.
Yeah.
Still, right? And academically, we offer what most colleges can't, right? And so when we had those conversations during my interview process of starting a women's program, I was pretty hell bent on it. Like it got to the point where I was like, if this isn't on the table, I'm not coming, right? Because if you looked at the time, and even now to a point, like most of the colleges now are enrollment driven in women's wrestling, right? There's very little scholarship money unless you're like Iowa, or there's a couple D2 schools that have some good scholarship money to hand out athletically, but most of them don't have it. So it's an enrollment driven decision, right? And academically, the schools they're not bad. It depends on what you're majoring in and things like that. But if you wanted to go to medical school, or if you want to go to law school, or if you want to go off to go get your MBA somewhere, your options are very limited. Like it just doesn't exist in the women's wrestling space. So I saw that as a very great way to fill a void, right? Especially for great student athletes on the East Coast. And for me, it was nice that we didn't add women's wrestling because we wanted to increase enrollment. We did it because it was the right thing to do.
Mm.
And so for us, and for me to just sell that story, is fantastic. And now so if we're talking to a great student athlete from California who wants to go to medical school and she wants to compete in college, it's like, well, in the past, they either had to sacrifice their education because they wanted to compete, or they had to sacrifice their wrestling career because they want to go to medical school. And there's only so many places where that's going to be a viable option. Now you don't have to anymore. You can do both with us, right? And so and so that's the biggest thing that we can offer. Like they can go compete at the highest level in college and still achieve what they want to achieve academically. I know we're not an Ivy League school. Like I'm not naive to that, but the Centennial Conference is pretty legit when it comes to academics. And so we are basically the Ivy Leagues of the women's wrestling space. And now some other schools in our conference are starting to add, which is really great to see. And so we're just hoping for more, because more like-minded schools like us in this sport is just a good thing. It's just going to elevate us.
I want to get into academics a little bit, but before we do that, how does it all work balancing both programs? Some of the schools that we've seen or interviewed with, it's kind of like separate programs. There are some that have kind of a director, and then there's some umbrella where there's a head associate men, head associate women.
Yeah.
How do you balance all of that? Are they in the room at separate times, and obviously with two different styles?
Yeah,
Must keep you on your toes a little bit?
it is, man. But people always say to me, like, how do you do it? And I'm like, I just freaking love it.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I do it. Like, it's just, to me, this is not work. This is like, this was something like I saw, like, this is what I was called to do. Like, I love this. Like, and and people, like, it was funny. One of the parents on the women's team said to me, like, I was with the men on Saturday, got on the, like, leave Friday night with the men for a tournament. They wrestle all day. One of my assistants is running the women's practice. They get off the bus. The women get off the bus. We're on the road to another tournament, wrestle all day Sunday. And he's like, what would you be doing right now at home? I'm like, I'd be watching wrestling. I'd be watching Big Ten Duel. Like, what do you want me to do? And it's like, I just, for me, it's just having back-to-back practices for me it's a blessing. I don't, yeah. Are there times of the year like the postseason gets a little stressful because I got to travel a lot, and I have two kids, and that does get stressful. It's hard on my wife, and she's a freaking rock star and she crushes it. Um, but we talk about balance. Like, there is no balance. It does not exist. There's no balance. It's 2 feet in, or you better find somebody else to do the job. Right. But I'm also incredibly fortunate. My staff is awesome. Like, I have a great staff. I'm the only full-time coach. But I lean on them a good amount. Like, they help me recruit, and they have full-time jobs and they have families. But at the same time, it's like they want to be involved as they possibly can. Right. And so it's been really great to just be able to know that I have 7 assistants. I have 1 associate head coach, Anthony. He really is like grown over the years, but he was at Ursinus for 1 year before I got there, and he reached out and he really loved it there. And I brought him in to talk to him. We might have talked for 2 minutes. I'm like, we don't have to do this anymore. Like you're hired. Let's go. Let's hit the ground running here. Because I could just, like I said, it's that just for me, it's just that innate judge of character where I was like, dude, you're in. Like let's go. Um, and so we've really like just everyone has just been all in from day one. And there's times where it's like, hey, the men are gonna be here. I need you. I need you to run this practice on Friday. I need you to run this practice on Saturday. And that does happen from time to time. But the one thing we typically tell everyone, it's like we will avoid having them compete in separate places on the same day at all costs. It's only happened one time in the 3 years. We had the women's regionals and the men's futures tournament on the same day, and it was unavoidable. Because they're not like our qualifying tournaments are qualifying tournament. There's nothing I can do about it. But we've made a dedicated uh point to be like, because parents will ask, like, how do you manage it? You know what I mean? Because they want, obviously, they want what's best for their kid as much as they want what's best for wrestling as a whole. Um, and we just promise them that we will always be there no matter what. And I think they appreciate that. Now, with that being said, they run the separate practices, right? Obviously, but there's a lot of crossover too. Like we'll do events together with both programs together. Sometimes we'll purposely go to an event or schedule duels with teams that also have a men's and women's that are run maybe not by the same staff, but we'll at least coordinate. And so we'll all hop, like we went to Nashville together, to go to the Gator Boot duels. And we threw 60 odd kids on two buses. I got guys, let's go. And we had a ball. Like everyone, I think, while they're separate teams, technically, it's one program, right? And so I think they really enjoy that family process where it's like they look out for each other, and it's like, yeah, we have our men's team and our women's team, but we're one program and they're a family, and they look out for each other a lot.
You mentioned being one program, but do you wear different hats for the men's and women's, or do you coach them all the same?
It's definitely different. And, I've had some conversations in the past with a lot of the guys who are like, well, why do you do this with this person? Why do you do that with that person? And it's like, well, you're different people,
Mm.
right? And under no circumstances am I going to treat you the same way as I treat her, right? Or as I treat him, because your needs are different than his or hers. Right. And so I do my best to like try and meet everybody where they're at and what they need in order to make this happen. Like it's my job as a coach to differentiate amongst everybody in the room, right? I mean, obviously there's going to be things that we need to work on as a staff, right? And with each program and with each team, there's going to be things that pop up and things that arise. But at the end of the day, you're an individual. This is an individual sport, and I'm going to do everything I can to give you what you need, right? And there's been times too where we've had two kids in kind of a similar type of situation. They're not doing the right things, and I got to pull them in, and my conversations with them are totally different, right? Because while they might be doing the same things that aren't what they should be doing, their needs are different, right? And their reasons for doing what they're doing are different. And so my conversations are a lot different because, like I said, it's my job to meet them where they're at as people.
I appreciate that. I had a coach that was one size fits all, and that didn't always work all the time. But I appreciate the coaches that would talk to people different and talk to them like they were human. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I want to give you a compliment before you said not
Mm.
everyone is a Division 1 athlete, and you kind of went into the details of that, and I just want to give you dabs and say if you ever want to do a TED talk on that, I think the sport needs it. That's why we're doing what we do.
Yeah.
We grew up in an area, New Jersey, where it was Division 1 or bust. Why are you even
Mhm.
looking at those other schools? And I
Yep.
was kind of in the same boat. Well, I'm pretty sure you were on the waiting list, so you were probably a little bit better with your academics than I was, but junior college was the only option for me. So without junior college wrestling, I wouldn't have wrestled in college or had the opportunity to go to the next level. So I love that mindset. But you also said that you guys, if people want to be doctors, they can go there, they can
Yep.
wrestle, and go to med school afterwards. And you also said you wanted to go to school there and
Mhm.
you love the campus there. So let's get into the
Mhm.
academics, get into the campus life.
Yeah. So, Ursinus is, it's a small liberal arts college, about 1,600 kids, right? It's set in suburban Philly in Collegeville. So it's a kind of it's a unique setup. Like especially like in PA, like if you're a small like little college, you're typically in like an urban setting in like a smaller city, right? Like a Wilkes-Barre, like where I'm with the Kings, or like a York or a Williamsport. Or you're a school in the middle of nowhere, right? Where we're pretty unique, where we're in this little town that's right outside of Philadelphia, like right in the heart of Montgomery County. It's like Valley Forge is right there, King of Prussia is right there, Phoenixville is right there. So there's just like a ton happening within the area. So not only is there a lot happening in the town, you go 5 minutes in either direction. There's just a ton of stuff happening. So we're kind of unique in that way where we're also in this we were just named the safest city in Pennsylvania, and so it's a very family oriented town. And so we kind of like where these other colleges are beautiful, a lot of times, but you start walking off campus, like you better turn around, and go back. Where us, it's like you cross the street in campus. We own the first row of homes there. They're these old homes that we own. They're offices or dormitories. But then you walk half a block down the road, it's just all families. Right. So it's kind of nice where we just have this setup where we're in this just beautiful area where there's tons to do. And because we're in the suburbs, our campus is a little more spread out than most with our student body. So we have 170 square acres for 1,600 kids. Right. And while it's not huge, right, where you're taking a shuttle from class to class, there's a ton of open space. Right. And so you kind of get that like traditional movie type campus that you'll see, but at the same time, you'll get that small classroom attention where it's like by the time like you're a second semester sophomore, like you're going to your chem lab and there's 7 people in there. You know what I mean? So you're getting what you need academically, but then you're kind of getting the best of both worlds where you're getting that little bit of a bigger campus feel, right? When you're walking around, and the campus itself is just gorgeous.
I know you said it's a liberal arts school. Are there any
Yeah.
fun, unique majors? We talked about some different things in different parts of the country that we never knew about. Geographically, I didn't know you guys were that close to Philly as well too. So I just learned something
Me
new
too.
about the school. Any interesting, unique majors,
I don't know if there's anything like super unique, but what we do, which I think is kind of neat, is
or maybe some internships and things like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually a requirement at Ursinus to have an internship. You can't graduate without one, right?
Okay.
Which is
Regardless of the major.
Yep. You
Okay.
have to
Cool.
have something. And whether it's like an immersive program or you're actually out in the workforce, like every major is a little bit different. Like if you're in education, your student teaching counts as your
Mhm.
internship, right? If you're gonna end up in PA school, you have to have a certain number of clinical hours, right? And so there's always has to be something that you're doing. The way we operate is, especially when it comes to, you know, our goal, like Ursinus it's an undergraduate school. There's no graduate programs at all. They have agreements with other schools that like if you want to go streamline that. But their goal is purely to focus on the undergraduate experience. And so if you want to go to medical school or PA school or law school, they operate under like umbrellas, right? So they have these pre-professional programs. So they have like their pre-professional pre-med program, their pre-professional PA program, their pre-professional law program. And so like your major isn't pre-law. Like you can major in whatever you want, right? Like you can major on anthropology, you can major in bio, environmental science. If you want to be an environmental science lawyer, major in environmental science, but we're going to put you in our pre-law program to get you to law school to do what you need to do and take care of that. Like if you're pre-med, you're typically a bio major, right? But then once it gets down to like nitty-gritty stuff and what you want to do, they put you on this track of where you want to go. And they also, with our majors, like there's this like umbrella essentially, right? It's like, so like for health and exercise, right? We have that umbrella, but then there's people that want to be chiropractors. There's people that want to be health and PE teachers, that people that want to be PTs. There's all different, there's people that want to be ATs. And so you'll start with your foundational core classes and then they kind of streamline you to where you want to be. Right. And so that's, I think, is pretty unique in that sense of how we operate, is that everything is individualized.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Is there a predominant major amongst the wrestlers, or one that's more
Yeah.
popular than the others?
Yeah. I'd say about 2/3 of the, maybe not that much. but probably somewhere between a half and 2/3 are either bio or health and exercise, and then the rest are typically business. And then we'll have like, like an English guy might be here, or this and that. But the college has also made a very large effort into the business programs, and now there's now two majors, one's finance and one's economics. And so over the years they've made a huge effort to really boost up that program. And last year, US News for the first time ranked um national liberal arts colleges programs, and we were like immediately ranked in the top 100. So that was cool for the college to see that their efforts have kind of paid off with that.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Good stuff.
Rich, I got one last question for Coach before we get in the final four. If you don't have anything, but you guys have five kids going to nationals, right?
We had so women's nationals was this past weekend. We had six.
Six.
Yeah.
All right. What about the on the men's side?
On the men's side, unfortunately, became close. It just didn't happen. It was one of the,
Okay.
like I said, we were a young team, and like it's right now. There's 21 man brackets, so there's seven regions. Top three get to go. And they reorganized all the regions this year because we got those extra three spots for weight. And our region is tough, man. It's tough. But some guys battled. It's a shame. Our 41 pounder was probably the guy that we thought like he can punch through. And he unfortunately had he got injured in the quarters, and we had to pull him out. He was
Okay.
he was he was on his way though, man. He was beating the tar out of the 3 seed. It was fun to watch. He was just feeling it, and just he does the kid who does everything right, and he's grown tremendous. He went from having a losing record his freshman year to going to that tournament. I think he was going in the tournament. I think he was 28-12
Nice.
as a sophomore. So he just really was into his own, and we loved his path in the bracket. We liked the matchups, and he was winning. I don't remember the score. I think it was 7-2. He was winning, and unfortunately got hurt, and we had to pull him out. But we had a guy take fourth and a guy take fifth.
All right. And how the
Yes.
women fare?
Women did great, man. We were super excited about the program this year. We knew coming in, we were excited about obviously our team is very young, right? And we had all of our starters returning, obviously. We were excited about our class that came in. So we had six national qualifiers. So right now it's a 32 person bracket, and there's 8 regions, top four go. So we qualified six. What's exciting for us is that we didn't just like qualify six. We had six in the regional finals.
Nice.
Right. And so it's like we got our girls to the semis, we went 6 for 6 in the semis. And so that round was just unbelievable. Like they all just like stepped it up and just killed it. We had two region champs for the first time ever. Or 124, Callie Roskus, Jersey girl, Delran in South Jersey, and Chloe Charlesworth at 145. So they're the first ever region champs in school history. This was both their second time in nationals. They both went 2-2. They wrestled fantastic. So they finished top 16. And they both lost by like a razor thin margin in those matches. And so they're right there with like the best girls in the country. And like, remember, it's all divisions right now too. So it's like they're going out and they're wrestling. Like we go out there, we're wrestling Iowa and Sacred Heart and Presbyterian and McKendree and North Central, and just seeing all the best teams and going toe to toe. And it's been a great experience. Our class coming in is phenomenal so far. We have 9 coming in. 3 of them are ranked top 20 nationally. And we're really now just going to build up our depth, right? So obviously our entire lineup is coming back. We're going to fill some holes and build our depth. And we're really excited to see where we can go next year on the women's side. And like I said before, on the guy side, most of our guys are coming back. And right now we have a handful of guys that are committed that we're excited about. And so the future is like, I always say the future is bright in Collegeville.
Nice.
Heck yeah, we're excited to see what the future holds. I'm
Yeah.
curious, Coach, you mentioned earlier, without a doubt, there's no debate about Pennsylvania being the top boys high school state. New Jersey, can be anywhere from second to, fifth, depending on who you're talking
I always
to.
say it's two.
We'll give you
Us
dabs
too.
for that too.
I say two always.
What I think on the girls' side, maybe New Jersey and Pennsylvania are a little bit behind some of the other states. So if you had to rank, well, I mean, in terms of like where they're at in the
Yeah.
championships and those sorts of things and sanctioning, maybe not skill level, but what do you see on the women's side in terms of the talent, in the country? Where is there hotbeds like state-wise?
Yeah, I mean, not to be a homer, but I think everyone's going to be like PA's been creeping up, right?
Yeah,
And
for
so,
sure.
yeah, and they got a lot of criticism as far as like with the PIAA rules, right? And I'm sure there's
Hmm.
a lot of noise about that, about how PA's got to get to 100 teams before they can sanction a championship. So the first one was last year, but I think that process that PA had to go through is actually helpful,
Hmm.
right? Because it caused this effort amongst everybody. There was like a lot of states just sanctioned it and then girls would come, right? PA had to do the opposite. PA had to build these teams and then it got sanctioned, right? And so it really forced everyone to do kind of the back end work in the youth programs, right? To get these girls wrestling and then get them to high school. With that being said, PA USA Wrestling does an unbelievable job. Like I've been fortunate enough now to be on the Fargo staff for the last 2 years. And just seeing the work that they have put in before I got there is just unbelievable. So my first year, we won the 16U title, took fourth in juniors. Last year, we won 16Us again and moved up to third in juniors. PA has won the 14U duels like the last 4 or 5 years in a row. At, and I keep telling everyone who's going to listen, it's going to be a clean sweep this year. PA is going to win 14U duels. They're going to win 16U in Fargo, and they're going to win juniors in Fargo on the girls' side. And I don't foresee it stopping in
Hmm.
the next. It's the talent level of the PA girls in freestyle is something I've never seen before. It's unreal. And they just keep churning them out. And when I think, man, that girl's the future of this sport, I'll turn around 2 weeks later and I'm like, who is that kid? You know what I mean? It's crazy. Um, and of course, I'm a little biased, right? Because I'm in the weeds with it a lot and I see it, but I also see what's coming up the pipe and it's unbelievable. Traditionally, um, California has been where it's at
Yeah.
as far as girls wrestling is concerned. They won juniors this year. They've won it past couple of times. They've been great. New Jersey had an unbelievable year on the junior side. They didn't have a lot of depth on the team. So I don't know if everybody knows how Fargo scoring works. It's like in a traditional tournament, like if you have three people at one weight, right? You only get the points for the highest point scorer. Fargo rewards depth. So if you enter, like, so the more people you have, the better off you are, right? So if you have three All-Americans at a weight in Fargo, you get points for all three of them, right? And you only get points if you All-American. That's it. So the more people that you can put on a podium, the better. And PA does really, really well because we have incredible depth. And so we'll have a couple All-Americans at different weights. Jersey, they had a bunch of All-Americans and then nobody else. They only brought like 10 girls and they all placed. So their talent level of their best girls is really, really high. I just think they got to work a little. They're working now, I should say, on building that depth, right? On getting that. So I'm excited to see what happens there too. Um, yeah, but for my money, it's PA in Jersey or PA in California on the girl side. Texas has got a pretty strong history of having some top-notch girls. Hawaii, of course, they
Hmm.
were the first sport, and so or the first high school league to sanction it for as a state, and so they always have a number of girls that are really, really tough. Um, I'm taking a bunch of our women out to Spokane in a couple weeks, so I'm excited for USA Nationals to see not only how our women fare, but to be out there with like the U17s and the U20s and see how who's coming next.
Very cool.
Yeah, of
Yeah, thank you for filling us in. I know I need to be educated a little bit more on women's wrestling, so I appreciate that.
course, man.
The future of the sport.
Yep. Final four, Rich?
Let's do it.
All right. Coach, are you a coffee drinker?
I am a lot of coffee.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
All right, so I brew Starbucks at home, right? My habit got a little too expensive, so I brew it at home. Dark roast always. Depending on where I go, really depends on what I'm drinking. Like if I go to Starbucks or I brew it at home, it's just a little bit of milk, maybe one Splenda tops. But if I go to Wawa, I have this. Wawa is the only place that I know of where you can get Irish cream in the carton all year round, and I love that stuff. So I get I do a mix of, and it's funny because the teams know, the guys and the girls all know what I want. So if they're making a Wawa run, they don't even ask me, and they know exactly how I like it. It's just a little bit of the Irish cream and the Cuban roast Wawa coffee, and that's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Jim, I think that's our first Wawa selection on the podcast in 240 plus episodes. So kudos, coach.
Yeah,
We do love a good Wawa trip, don't we,
Right.
Jim?
yes, we do. Do you mess with sheets, coach, or just Wawa?
I know that, well, on the road, a lot of times we'll see more sheets, right, than Wawa. There's always the PA battle, right? Like, what's better, Wawa or sheets? I'm a Wawa guy, but sheets is good. I like it. I would say sheets has more quantity. Wawa's got more quality,
I
right?
agree.
But I will say this, the sheets coffee's pretty good, man. They have the machine that like brews the beans right there, and just
Hmm.
the sheets coffee is pretty good.
All right. I'll have to keep an eye on that on the
Yeah.
next trip.
Yes, sir.
Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Joe Jamison?
Man. I'd say one thing that I do every day is so my wife works super early mornings, like so she's done at work at 6 a.m. Like I get up, she's already started working, right? So and I'm in charge of getting the kids to school and doing all that. I and then once that's all settled, I always make sure that I work out at home before I go in on campus, right? I'm gonna be there until 8:30 every night, right? And so when I'm there, I want to make sure that I'm taking care of everybody else's needs, not my own, right? And so I always try to make sure that I get, unless there's something like pressing, I have to get out the door and get there. I always make sure that I get my workout in at home. That's my time. I'll do that for me. And then once I step foot on campus, it's about everybody else.
You lifting, you running, treadmill, bike, spin,
Um,
Peloton? What do you got? What's the
I'll
favorite way to
run
sweat?
I usually run like 2 days a week. I don't run a
Okay.
ton. I did run a marathon a while back, and ever since I did that, I was like, okay, I
I'm
think I'm
good.
done. I'm good. So I'll go out and I'll do like twice a week. I'll run like 4 miles, like twice a week, and then I call it a day. I actually stopped like lifting heavy weights. God, I'm 45 now, so probably was around like 35. I just didn't feel good anymore, like
Hmm.
the joints and things like that. And so I get this like super corded strength band, right? I use that. It's fantastic. It usually lasts me about 6 months before it pops. It only costs like $30. And I have that an Iron Gym pull up and push up bar
Okay.
that I use. And so I'll just do like upper lower splits, right? And it usually takes me about 45 minutes. Nothing crazy, but it works for me. And I don't know if it's gonna work for everybody, but it works for me and I feel good, right? I'm not like, you know, limping into the practice room because my knees hurt or my elbows hurt or my shoulders hurt. It's like I make a conscious effort to kind of take care of myself because I know 3, 4 times a week I'm gonna be rolling around with these guys and girls. So it's important that I'm the best version of myself in a physical way that I can do that still.
Okay. What marathon did you run?
New York.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It was story for another time, but I didn't really train for it. I only had like 5 weeks before I was given the go. So I did like kind of figure it out. I did pretty well, but once I hit like mile 21, it was rough.
The wall does exist, doesn't it?
I know. Oh yeah. And it came fast and hard.
Yes, the wheels come off pretty quickly if you're not
Yeah.
doing some things the right way.
Yeah.
Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Um, a lot of music lately. I do like podcasts a lot. I was pretty heavy in the podcast for a while. For a long time now, I've refused to pay for Spotify. I'm like, I'm not paying for music. Like, I'm not paying for that. And I didn't do it until I was kind of forced to for a family event. And my mom was like, we need something where there's not going to be like these commercials. I was like, I'll just get the free Spotify and I'll take care of it. And I was like, man, this is awesome. I could not believe like I just didn't like do this earlier. And this was in like November. Like where I was like, I can't believe that I could have all this on my fingertips. So lately I'm a big Pearl Jam guy, big Ben Harper fan, and big in the Springsteen. So those are like my three go-to. every once in a while, and I'm super excited about the new Mumford and Sons that's coming out. So I'm really excited about that one too. But yes, but Pearl Jam, Harper, and Springsteen are like my three go-to. Big, and my wife and I also like Brandi Carlile a lot. We've seen her a bunch of times. So
So I didn't get the Spotify premium until I had a girlfriend who put me on the family plan. And then
yeah.
once we broke up, once I got that first commercial, I was like, all right, I'm getting family plan for everyone in
Yeah.
my family.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It was like a whole world opened up. I was like, I cannot believe that I lived without this.
Yep.
Who's controlling the auxiliary cord in the wrestling room?
The guys take turns. Guys and
Okay.
girls all take turns. Yeah. So it's never me. And I always tell them, like, Coach, you want to hop on it? And I'm like, my phone goes off way too much, guys. Like there's just, it just no. Don't even worry about it. So there's always like a rotation of people that'll do it. Anthony, our assistant coach, a lot of times will hop on, or he's our associate head coach, excuse me. So he'll hop on a lot. On whoever's on it varies. Some days we have like indie rock or alternative. Other days we'll have country days. Other times I'm like, what the hell are we listening to? Sometimes the girls, especially, will put on songs like purposely to get me embarrassed, and they'll see if I'm paying attention to it. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, you know, um, but yeah, it's all good fun. It's really like it's about them and what they want. So 9 times out of 10, whatever they put on, they put on. But some days are better than others. I'll say that when it comes to the music in the room.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I hear you. I'm a high school physical education teacher, so I have to filter through some things sometimes
Yep.
myself.
Yep.
Coach, last one we have for you, it's a little lighthearted one. It could be maybe it's you're in Philly, maybe it's a cheesesteak. There's some good craft beers out there. Maybe it's a beverage. You've got some young ones. Maybe you're a closet Swifty. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
I'm a big Guinness guy.
Okay.
I'm a big Guinness guy. And so anyone who this hat is actually, it's a Guinness hat right there.
Nice.
Yeah. So and I got some stuff on the walls back here. So I'm like fanatical about it. So, that's my go-to. It's something that, when I turned 21, it was something my dad drank. And he's like, all right, let's go to the pub, and so it's something for me. It's just, it's kind of nice too, because like it's low alcohol, it's nothing crazy, it's something you just kind of sit around and enjoy. And yeah, so that's the guilty pleasure. I don't ever like drink during the week or something like that, but I might have one or two on the weekend just to kind of relax and chill out. And so it's and anytime I'm with family, it's always there. It's always a thing. It's always a go-to. So
Are you supplied and stocked up for St. Patrick's Day already?
always
Always.
St.
Nice.
Patrick's Day every day in my house, man.
Well, I noticed the Phillies banner in the background. Are you a
Yeah.
Philly fan across the board?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really pay attention to basketball and hockey that much. It's just
Mhm.
during our season, it gets tough. I
But
always
you're a
say,
Birds fan.
what's that?
You're a Birds fan.
Big fan,
Yeah.
baby. Big Birds fan. But I grew up in a baseball house. So my dad was super into baseball. My wife is super into baseball. She loves it. So once spring, so it's great for us. Like wrestling season ends, baseball season starts, and so we usually make it a point to get their game or two every year. And but yeah, big Phillies and Eagles fans. I'm a big Notre Dame football fan. So it's been a fun couple of years here in the house.
Awesome. Well, we do appreciate you sharing everything and hearing about the program. And like Jimmy and I always say, we love doing this because it gives us more coaches and more athletes and schools and programs to root for. So we will be, like I said, we'll be adding or sign us up on the wall in our man cave with all the pendants and banners. And the future is bright. So we're looking forward to what the men and women have to offer in the future. And we're excited to cheer for you guys and
Thank you,
gals.
man. Thank you, man. I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you reaching out. It's always a joy for me to talk wrestling and talk about the programs.
Heck
Absolutely.
yeah, Coach. Thank you so much for your time. This was an awesome conversation.
Thank you, guys.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is this week's shows. We do, again, thank Coach Rollins joining us last night, Coach Jamison joining us tonight. Next week, we will be back and we are going to complete the Grand Valley trifecta. We've had Nick Polk on. We had Coach Marzakowski on, and now we're going to have their mentor and coach on, the head coach at Grand Valley University cross country and track and field. So have a great week. Enjoy your weekend, and we will